Hello everyone. Apparently I was trying to boomer everything again tonight. Just one second. Sorry about that. I was been recording videos off and on all day, so I've been moving lights around and I turned them off and then I forgot to turn them back on. So, how is everybody doing tonight? It has been an interesting day. We're supposed to, here in most of the middle part of Idaho, be dropping down into the negative Fahrenheit digits this evening through Friday morning-ish is what they're saying. Wind chills could get as bad as 40 below, so that could be fun. Tonight I was thinking about this as I was going over last night's live, which is a history of spiritualism. And I'm going to turn that into a weekly series, if you want to call it that, where once a week, maybe every other week, it depends on my life's schedule, I want to do a show, and I'll post a poll on YouTube about it as well. Just kind of let me know what day you think would be better. I'm thinking either Monday or Thursday, just because of the way my life schedule goes right now, so it'll be one of those 2 days, and we'll do a discussion on a figure that played prominently in spiritualism or religion over the last lifetime, however long time has existed. I haven't decided how far back my reach will go on this, but there's a lot there, so I was just going to toss it out there that if you have a date or one of those 2 days, Monday or Thursday, that you'd prefer, and like I said, I'll post a poll later for that. And let's see here. We'll get the notes brought up there. So tonight, I was going to talk about energy work and some of the modalities that are more common amongst a lot of practitioners. So if you've watched a lot of my videos or a whole list of other people's videos, there's a lot of us out there that offer different healing services or energy work of some form. You've heard the terms of Reiki, aura reading, chakra balancing, and energy healing. I'm going to adjust my mic just a hair bit. Brace your ears. So how does this all amazing, my opinion, alternative healing therapy work? Where does it come from? So let's dig into some of these ideas and see how far we get if I don't break down first, because like I said, it's been a long day. So let's go over the belief or scientific theory, because there's two different ways to look at this. But if we look at the belief or scientific theory first, it's been believed for years in alternative spiritual and alternative medical communities that the body is significantly more than this physical meat suit that we're wearing. It was a spiritual or energetic component in the alternative practitioners that was more powerful than in the physical form at any point in time. This energy body and or soul body, depending on how you look at it, holds the blueprint for the physical form. There are a lot of layers to this energy field, and if you want to check out my other video on energy bodies, it's linked in the description. Sorry about the lighting. That was one of my first videos, and I hadn't gotten everything figured out yet, so it looks like there's a glowing face and a green screen. Which, it wasn't even a green screen, it was actually a tapestry. I just had horrible lighting. So, if you're interested, like I said, it's linked in the description. This energy field, though, can be affected by the thoughts within your mind, and what a lot of people are just now starting to come around to this belief, your energy field is also affected by energy frequencies that come at your body. They're not just the ones within your body. The scientific world, on the other hand, has denied a lot of this since they can't put it under a microscope. It's just the truth of how it went. And although there have always been the holdouts that believed in the energy world, they were not very common, or they weren't very loud spoken. I mean, they might have been loud in their own bubble, but their message didn't spread very far. What I found interesting in the modern world and the ever-expanding knowledge of quantum physics, which is amazing, is the grudging acceptance that there might just be a little bit more than the meat suit, than the ceramic coffee cup. There's a lot more here than what they want to admit. Now they're having to. Some quantum theory states that there's nothing solid within the entire universe. Everything is in a vibrational form until it is observed by a consciousness. Changes the song a little bit, doesn't it? Oddly enough, even once it's observed, it still holds a vibrational pattern, but it is perceived to be a solid form. So, a fun video, and this is just something that I thought was entertaining because I watched this just recently again. A fun video that explains the vibrational belief system in quantum theory applied in this manner. And I'm saying that specifically because there are people out there who get really hostile when you talk about quantum physics outside of the CERN laboratory, and they don't want to believe that the human mind is capable of adjusting or working with it. There's a lot more there than they want to admit. They just don't want to let go of their clinical control. But the movie is called What the Bleep Do We Know? It explains the vibrational waveform with some amazing music. There's some of it that's like old school music, so it's fun. But there's also a lot of really good imagery. They got studios, I think they got 5 or 6 different animation studios, all digital animation. And they had some really good actors, and the way they played it off, it makes it funny, but it explains a lot of this belief system in a way that's easy to understand. And to put that into context, it first came out in 2004, and it's one of my favorite movies to this day. So there's that. The other thing is I've linked several resources in the description, and those resources, when you click on those links and purchase through those links, actually help support the channel a little bit, so that's why they're down there, other than the fact that they're really super handy informational books. They're all ones that I either own or have friends that have owned and I've borrowed and read. So they are actually, I can validate all of them. So let's look at the spiritual concept. We looked at a little bit of the quantum physics, got a basic idea of energies, waves, nothing's physical. I'm going to go over the spiritual concept. Sorry, I got distracted. It's like been a long, tired day. We'll go over the concepts of the spiritual part, and then I will share my theory about how they work together. And my theory is surprisingly short once we get into that. In most energy work practices, the practitioner is a conduit or channel. I don't like to use the word channel because people assume you're bringing in, spirits. And you sometimes are, don't get me wrong, but you're the conduit or the channel for the energy that they are bringing in. And when you bring it in, you're bringing in angels, you're bringing in Reiki, you're bringing in crystals, or there's a list of other energy frequencies that you can call forth as a practitioner. And a lot of the times, there are the strict traditionalists that say you have to be trained and tuned and fill in the blank through a lineaged process, and that's the only way you can practice. There's a lot more reality in the fact that it takes meditation and it takes practice and conscious knowledge that brings this energy in. It helps and it speeds the process up significantly to have training, to go through an attunement. But let me be honest with you, if you're willing and dedicated to put the time in, those are emphasis on words there, dedicated and willing to put in the time, you can develop a lot of the healing practices without that. That being said, I still recommend, if you have the opportunity, to take some of the courses and take some of the attunements to speed things along. It just makes it way easier. It's usually channeled through the hands, generally the palms, sometimes the fingertips, but it can be channeled through any other part of the body as well. Some people can, basically it's a form of mesmerism. You can channel channel energy through your eyes. There's other people who will give like a full body hug, and it will literally do the healing work in that respect, and it doesn't take that long usually, but generally it's through the hands. Now, in my experience, the practitioner brings in the energy, brings it through their hands, and the hands will float, sometimes twitching and doing this number, over the body of the client, and their hands will kind of move randomly. It's almost like they don't control them, because the energy that's being brought in is controlling kind of the gear shift at that point, or the steering wheel at that point. And there are some practices, and I've been trained in one of these, that you'll physically place the hands on the body part that's not that's out of alignment. There we go. And this will help you consciously bring in and focus the energy into that system in that location. I've worked with both the energy field and physical, and to me they work the same as far as the process within the body. One is just more physical contact. Some people are not okay with contact, and that's where the hands off works better. But they both can direct the energy just fine. What is happening in these sessions is simple but complex. I love these type of things. Simply stated, the practitioner is bringing in the energy that the client's energy field needs to heal, rebalance, realign, or fix. But you're working at an energy level at this point. And by adjusting, infusing the energy field with this outside energy, the physical body can be affected pretty miraculously in some cases. And since you are changing or fixing the blueprint of their body, the physical is obviously going to be affected. Energy work, because it's done a lot of the times not physically, can be sent at great distances. Sitting where I am right now, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, really. I could work a session for you, and it would have just as much effect as if you were standing right next to me. Because in the concept of energy work, the world and the non-physical world, physical space as we observe it, doesn't exist. There's no barrier in that energy field. So energy work can be used effectively all over the world, and if we want to go there, because it's a possibility, especially when you have people like some of the billionaires that are playing with their rockets into space, in my opinion, there's no reason we couldn't send it as far out of the galaxy as we choose. And the interesting part about this is, and this is where we bring things together, at the quantum level, everything is vibration, or energy. Energy work functions within the quantum potential, or the astral energy field. So when a practitioner taps into this energy field that they will be working with and working within, they bring this energy field into the physical, and they allow this field to travel through them into their client. This can help realign the vibration of the client's energy field, altering and fixing their energy body. This can have very real, in some cases instant, results. I have to toss this out there just because of how things go anymore. This isn't medical advice, this is information that I'm bringing forward. So, in that concept though, when you're working with this energy that's everywhere, you're able to bring it into, like, through you or around you, and then you can project it out. Space and time at the quantum level as we know it do not exist, so there's no reason you can't project that energy through the field of quantum potential or astral or ether, whichever term you would rather use, across literally anywhere in space. So that's the reason that energy work is really functional at a distance. And energy work is not just about the modalities that I'm going to go over here in a few minutes. Energy work can be meditating on someone wanting to help them heal. So you're praying to a saint or an angel, to God, Jesus, Buddha, to heal that person. That's still a form of energy work. It's just a more passive form. The ones that I'm going over are a bit more active because you have a practitioner who brings in this energy. So, let me grab a drink real quick. Let's look at some of the specific energy practices. This is going to be a glancing over the top because each one of these can be a lifetime of study, and a lot of modern day practitioners will have 2, sometimes more, of these modalities. And a lot of the times, and this isn't knocking anybody, it's just there's a lot of information here, so that you pick the tool that works. You don't usually think about how far back it goes. So a lot of the times you'll get people who practice multiples of these. They understand their window, but they don't understand the broad picture. So with what I'm going to try to bring up with some of this is a little bit of a broader picture. It's not going to be fully comprehensive because each one of these modalities could literally be weeks worth of research and weeks worth of content, which might happen later, but not tonight. So number 1 on my list is Reiki. It's one of the most commonly talked about ones. It's one of the most commonly practiced ones. And it has a really broad range of styles. The origin of the primary practice goes back to a Japanese man named Makayo Usai. And I may have murdered that. I tried 3 different audio things, and that's the closest I could match to. Legend holds that the original system was called Usai Reiki Ryoho, which basically means healing the true self, or the teachings to heal the true self. He discovered this style of healing after learning from a couple of different Taoist and Buddhist monks, and still kind of having a little bit of trouble bringing in this information in. And so he climbed to the top of one of the most sacred mountains, and I didn't write the name down because I was going over other things, but there's actually a monastery still there, and multiple of the articles that I was going over referenced that they actually went to this mountain, and they said there is such a stillness on top of this mountain that it's transformative just to stand there. It is so peaceful and quiet. I mean, you can hear a river, there's birds, there's wind, but there's an inner quiet that settles on you in this area. So there's a reason he went there. And he discovered the Reiki that we know today after meditating on this mountaintop for 21 solid days alone on top of a mountain. After 21 days, he had rediscovered his true self. And since he had that reconnection, he'd reconnected with who he was at his core, his true self, unity with the divine occurred. When you have that in full enlightenment, you literally connect in, and it's instant. You don't have to work at it. And because of that, he was guided to share his teachings and this high-frequency vibration with others to help them achieve similar enlightenment. Oddly enough, Dr. Usai discovered this practice in and around 1922. Yeah, it's not as old as I used to think it was a lot older than that. But the reality is, the more I've researched it over the years, it's a relatively young practice. As of this year, which is 2022, it's 100 years old. That's it. But it has spread all over the world, literally. And there are a lot of different paths and practices that have sprung up from Dr. Usai's original practice. The one thing that I look at when we talk about Reiki, and this is one of the few places where I am a little bit of a snob on it, on stuff, is in the Japanese tradition, you can change a modality that you were trained in to basically make it more your own. And that's fine, as long as you give credit to the original. And a lot of people will just use, like, mermaid Reiki. I don't know if that's a real thing. I made it up just now. But And it's fine because they're still using the term Reiki, but to me, if you were trained out of Dr. Usai's line, then you should have his name somewhere in that title of Usai Reiki fill in the blank or something like that. That's a personal issue, but that's like the one part about this that kind of bugs me, because there's a lot of places that don't even reference him as part of their lineage of how they received their training. And like I said, my personal theory on it is Reiki is attributed to him. He's the one that really brought the term into the forefront of the consciousness. At least give him the credit for it, but whatever. Moving on. There is the EFT, the Emotional Freedom Technique, which has become very popular in the last few years. And this practice, it helps by tapping specific acupressure points along the body in a specific pattern, saying phrases related to releasing emotions, which will actually trigger physical healing. This practice was originally discovered, oddly enough, by Dr. Roger Callahan back in 1979 or thereabouts. And it was further developed over time by Gary Craig in the late 80s, early 90s. Gary Craig wrote a book somewhere around 95-ish, going over and kind of presenting what he had found through the development of EFT. One of the modern teachers, and this is actually how I was introduced to it, was Nick Ortner. And he's been spreading this technique to the newer audiences today. He does huge conferences, they do online stuff, there's newsletters, there's books, and one of his books is actually linked in the description, and it's an interesting technique because you literally do tap these different points on your face, on your body, but you're repeating certain patterns, and it's allowing you to bring up and release emotions that are stuck and kind of, not helping you or not healthy by any stretch. So the next one is probably one of the oldest forms of healing. This one, and then there's one other one that's almost as ancient, or around the same time period, I should say. That is acupuncture. This needle-filled art has been traced back over 2,000 years. Some reports, as I was rooting around in the history of this, documented as far back as 4,000 years. That's significant. One of the legends says that it comes from the Stone Age, when they used sharp knives, edges of tools, and even sharp sticks to lance abscesses, and they figured out that there were points on the body that actually affected the rest of you. One of the first records of using acupuncture in that term and in the style we know today was actually from the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Internal Medicine, written between 1500 BC and 1000 BC. They don't have an exact date because there is some interesting stories around the Yellow Emperor that are worth looking into, possibly like a semi-immortal or an alien or something, but there's some fun history around the Yellow Emperor. This system is used, the system uses points along the energy body that are in lines called meridians. Where the needles are inserted into these points, it realigns, recharges, or reconnects damaged meridians, because the meridians are not, according to our current medical evaluation, they are not real. But in an energy sense, they are massive lines of your energy field, and they connect physical points all along your body. Where did I just lost my place? I'm sorry. The meridian lines travel the entire circumference of the body, and they're used not just in acupuncture, but acupressure or shiatsu. Both of these later practices are used as a part of a massage technique and energy work, usually using acupuncture points and applying pressure with fingers, thumbs, and sometimes random tools. Acupressure is pretty much just using the same points you would with acupuncture, but using your fingers and your thumbs, whereas shiatsu incorporates a little bit of your own energy, like a Reiki type, but you're using it in a massage form, so it's not just stationary. All three of these different practices are extremely effective. Acupuncture is one that I have seen people who've had chronic migraines, backaches, etc. With a few sessions, it's gone. There's nothing else there, and they don't have a recurrence down the road. So that's, to me, amazing. The acupressure and shiatsu are the styles that I know how to do, and I'm not like master certified. I've had classes in it, but you'd be surprised with just some simple movements along certain meridian lines with certain pressure points applied. They're acupuncture points. The way that a body will respond to that is surprising at times. The next one is another ancient technique. I could not find a direct source for this, so it could be as long as people have existed, basically. And it is crystal therapy. This uses the vibrational frequency of crystals or stones to adjust or enhance the body's energy field. You can tell I've been doing this for a few days, and I've got side projects going on because I'm really tired tonight. And I do apologize for that. I try to be a bit more perky. Meditation on stones can help you understand the energy that they offer. And I've used a few different books to help give me a little bit of guidance on them, but I have found personally better results with taking the stone itself. This is just a little piece of quartz, if it would focus, and agate. You can see little sparkles in there. And just taking it and holding it in my non-dominant hand, so I'm right-handed, so my non-dominant's left, going into a meditative state and holding the stone in my non-dominant hand, and then reaching out and just feeling the vibration of the energy. And sometimes you'll have some stones, and I have an amethyst that does this, you'll start to get a lot of images and messages, and it just like comes at you like pretty rapidly. There are people, and unfortunately I don't have this type of experience, who will actually be able to commune with the spirit within, and that's getting into a more shamanistic practice. But you'd be surprised when you just hold the stones, you can figure out where they're supposed to be on your body, how you can use them in healing practices. You can get books that will guide you through a lot of this, or take courses, and that's great because I've taken courses. I have, like I said, a lot of books, but I found what works best for me is actually sitting down with the stone that I want to use in a healing practice and ask it, what do you have to teach me? Where do you want to be? What is your purpose? What is your function, your frequency, things like that. And once you learn that and start to really work with the different crystal energies, they can be projected through energy work practices across space and time. So you're bringing your awareness into the stone and you're projecting it out. So you're bringing that frequency out to the person, and you can literally work anywhere around the world with this. And with this practice, with a lot of meditation and things like that, so you can like get tuned in better. Start with physical stones doing the meditation so you can get used to what it feels like to touch that energy. Over time, you can actually start to summon energy from crystals that you physically don't have. And you can still use that frequency of energy, because energy is a frequency, in your healing practice. So there's a lot of ways you can expand this. Excuse me. And that's the reason I say there's not any one right or wrong way to do any of this. A lot of it is just experience, doing it for yourself, or going to a practitioner who's been doing it for a lot of years. And sometimes you'll have spontaneous connection, and people will just wake up and have these abilities. Side note, we'll just go off topic for a second. I've got one more to do. But there were times when I was younger and my parents didn't like this show. I was obsessed with it. And that show was Unsolved Mysteries. Unsolved Mysteries, to me, was like the best show in history. It still is. I will watch it on reruns because the old ones were the good ones. I don't like when I just lost his name. Robert Stack, I think. When he passed away, and they started to revamp the series with somebody else, I lost all interest in it because they made it too Hollywood. I mean, the show was cheesy to start with, but it was fun. But they would talk about these people who would have some kind of traumatic experience in their life, and it would spontaneously wake up a healing ability. They would talk about people, going back to that old saying of, like, if there's a kid trapped under a car, the mothers can move the car, superhuman strength. And it comes back to that energy field where you tap into that energy field and you can do a lot of things. But most people are disconnected. They don't want to admit that there's more out in the world and the universe than their bubble. And that bubble is their religion, their job, their home. There's nothing outside that they don't want to know. But once you crack open that door, you can't close it. And that's what a lot of these spontaneous healers that wake up to their abilities really quickly, it's because of things like that. They've had some kind of a trauma, or they've had some kind of experience that has brought this forward in a way that they are like, whoa, what just happened? And they've made tons of movies about it over the years, and they've written lots of books. Some of them are clinical journals, and they try to explain it away, especially the scientific community. But now we're starting to understand that that's not quite true, and they actually do have these abilities. So, back on track here, sorry. The last one I want to talk about is an interesting one. It's the topic of chakras, and I have had discussions, I have had debates, full-blown arguments with people over this term because they blur lines, and we'll get into a little bit of that as we go through here. The chakra system is unique to India and the religious practice of Hinduism, usually through the practice of tantric yoga, which does not mean what they mean today. Tantra is a way of basically building up energy to enlightenment. There just happens to be a enjoyable way to make that happen, but it's actually more than just that aspect of it. The term chakra means either wheel or lotus, depending on the translator. Translating ancient texts is difficult because even within one culture, the meaning of a word can change multiple times. So that's what we have to go off of, is it's either wheel or lotus. It's referenced in the Upanishads, and I do apologize if I said that wrong. Again, you try to listen, but not tonight. Dating back over 2,500 years. In the collection or cluster of points, which is a lot like the meridians, they call them nadis, which are the energy lines within the body. These lines, literally, they're not the same. There's actually significantly more of them than the meridians in the acupuncture system. Most of the texts that I was digging up references for, because I wanted to get an approximate number, say that there's over 72,000 nadis in the body. And at major clusters or crossing points are the primary 7 chakras. So this is where there's mass clusters, as your third eye, your crown, your throat, your heart. And we're not talking like, oh, there's 2 or 3 lines. From what I was reading, they were talking hundreds would either cluster in those points or cross at that point. So these are major energy ways of the body. Although there are minor chakras occurring at several other points on the body, basically wherever small clusters of nadis cross or come together is where there's a chakra point. And from what I was reading, the average number was 114 minor chakras outside of the main 7, and as many as 200. So again, you have a little bit of a what the WTF right there. The other part that I ran across a lot, and this is again a topic of mass discussion, was the chakra system as a whole. In a lot of the Hindu texts, you have a 5, 7, 12, or 16 set of chakras. I've never seen anything in the ancient writings or any ancient reference, and I don't read them all, so I can't speak to that. But so far in all the research I've done, the max I've ever run across is 16, 12 being basically the next level up from the 7. There are groups in China that try to say, and I'm not arguing, but this is something that bugs me, that there's only 3 chakras primary. That goes to a different healing modality, which is more aligned with Qigong, because in Qigong they talk about Dantian centers, and you have one that sits approximately the same place as the sacral chakra, there's one that sits approximately the same place as the heart chakra, and there's one that sits between the crown, or the third eye and the crown. It's the upper Dantian, and those are healing centers used in the Qigong system. They align with 3 of the chakras, but there's more than 3 chakras. The minimum that I've seen is 5, but the 5 system, from my understanding of it, as energy has shifted over time, I feel like the 5 system is actually fading out because we have 7 that are active in pretty much everybody I've ever been around or worked with. Although in the last few years especially, and I didn't fully understand it until even more recently, that as we are evolving energetically into a higher frequency, and there's a solar flash flare or something that's going on right now that could cause a little chaos with our electric field of the planet, that the sun just burped up, and we're shifting as a species into a higher frequency. Some call it the 5th dimension. Some people call it, if you follow the law of 1, the 4th density, which are completely different. And as we shift through that in the Yuga cycles, which is what I tend to go back to, the Kali Yuga, which is the one we just left, which is either 2,000 or 12,000 year cycle, depends on, again, who interpreted it. That cycle was the 5 chakras. You're very dense, you're very heavy. We're in a process of shifting through right now from the Kali into the Dwapara, and as we shift into that, we're becoming more energy focused and more energy frequencied. So that's the reason I think that my opinion, that's the reason I think that the 12 chakras are coming online. As we went from 5 to 7, we're moving into 12, and going on that theory, my theory, we'll go from 12 into 16 when we go out of Dwapara in 2,000 or 12,000 years, depending on the interpretation, into the next energy cycle. So there's a lot of interesting stuff about the chakras, and this is not really a stingy thing, but to understand what a process is, what an energy field is, how to work with it, you need to work within that system before you start introducing other parts. And that's where I think there's a little bit of discrepancy amongst some of the practitioners, is they want to, without understanding the chakra systems, they want to bring in other modalities. The chakras are the chakras. Quit messing with them. They're pretty cut and dried, and they're pretty basic on the body. Now you can use Reiki on the chakras, that's fine, but don't go rearranging the chakras if you don't know what you're doing. Where was I at? Sorry. So the other part that I found interesting, and I've only been recently coming to this understanding, and it's weird because this isn't an old concept, it's relatively new, but it's stuck with me because apparently it works for me. The colors varied in texts throughout the centuries. There's really no defined aspect. It's the person who is viewing them would set the colors. But the color system that I learned, and for some reason has stuck with me, but it works for me, so that's the reason I keep using it, was actually only developed in the 1970s. There was a gentleman who wrote a book, and he was trying to standardize the chakra system, making it easier to understand versus trying to understand the Hindu words, Sanskrit words, that you'd reference them, because you could say some of these words and people would look at you like, the what's? But if you say, the green chakra, the heart, or whatever, people could connect. And so a lot of the simplification of that came from this guy that wrote this book in the 1970s. The chakras can be aligned or balanced by practitioners, or if you're doing it on yourself, you can use yogic meditation, physical yoga, and the one that actually is focused on balancing, enhancing, and charging the chakras and awakening the rest of the energy bodies is tantric yoga. This seems to be the best at this art, and it also is the one that is focused primarily on awakening the Kundalini, which is the coiled female energy that rests in the root chakra. But that's a topic for another day. We were not going into that because that is in itself a full hour plus long video. So, like I said, my personal theory and my personal belief is with any of these, and these are the ones that I'm not attuned at Reiki. I've practiced something similar for a good 20 years now, probably 17 years actually. Anyway, because I developed it through meditation, through practice, through working with other people who had this type of energy, and through that I also developed a similar practice to shiatsu and acupressure. I do not do acupuncture. And I have learned over the time to expand my knowledge. I refuse to say that I'm a one-trick pony and this is all I know. I want to know a lot of it. And that's where I've worked with crystal therapy. It's another practice that I do. I don't offer that service unless it's a physical form, like me meeting in person, just because I know it can be done over distance, and I have practiced it over distance. It's just not something that I do as part of normal therapy. That being said, with my chakra balancing that I work, the energy work that I do there, I do use some crystal therapies because they're the crystals that have come forward when I've worked with them saying they're willing to work with me for that purpose. So that's how we go. But I hope that this offered some insights into the very vast and varied world of energy work. This is literally a short list. Just Reiki alone, you can find probably a good 50, because I've just Googled styles of Reiki and it's ridiculous how many come up. And this is literally just a short list. These are the ones that either I've had done on me, I've used in my practice, or actually the only one I've had done on me is Reiki. The rest of them I've done some version of, like I use acupressure and shiatsu, I use crystal therapy, I do chakras, I work with the energy, the aura fields. And so this is the stuff that I'm the most comfortable with. That's the reason I brought it up first. I am working on looking at some of the other more unique practices and expanding what I know, and as I expand that, I will bring it up to you. One of the modalities that works with crystal therapy is the energy concept or practice tool of orgone, which was developed by Willem Reich. I've done a video on that already, and in the description of this video is a link to my website where I offer my forms of orgones, and I have pyramids, I have pendants, I have little cones, and then I've got some more unique 6-sided pyramids, 5-sided pyramids, some tetrahedrons that I've done, and then there's also some obelisks, but they're all based on Willem Reich's concept and theories on orgone, but I've just added my version of crystal therapy within that. So if there's something that you're interested in, you can go ahead and comment below. Let me know if this is a type of video you like, if this is something that you'd like me to do a little bit deeper dive on any one of those subjects. Sorry. Like I said, this is just a small sampling of the ones that I'm the most familiar with. I know of others, I just haven't done deep dives on any of them. So this is a fascinating subject, and like I said, there's several links below to give you some resources about the various ones that we've talked about, and if you click through those links, it actually does help support the channel, and I do appreciate that. And you can check out the other video I did on the energy bodies, the different layers of the energy field. It's linked, and I have both YouTube and Odyssey descriptions so that you can pick the one you'd rather go to. With that, make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh yeah, my last little self-sell here, and that is, when you go to my website, you can find out about the orgones that I offer, but there's also the services that I offer, and those are offered through video calls, through distance work, or through offline sessions, which are not done with anything. I'll do the healing session on a basically on a physical table that I have for this purpose, and then take down the notes, because again, the energy fields that we work with, you can work significant distances and still have the same result as if the person was there. It just takes a little bit more practice and a little bit more focus to do it. But those are all offered in that way. Well, not all. The aura readings I do only through video call. Everything else I can do other ways. So but with that little grift there, I will wait, stop. Close that window. And I hope you enjoyed this. Again, let me know what you think. If there's any other topics that you'd like me to look at, go over, explain further, let me know in the comment section below. If there is any critique or criticism, also let me know. Just be respectful. It's all we can ask for in the current world, right? And like the video if you liked the video and enjoyed it, and subscribe so that you can find out when I go live next time or when I drop the next video. And feel free to share this with anybody who you think might get a little information out of it, or maybe if you're new to the healing arts and you're trying to explain it to somebody, maybe this video would help explain it to the other person. I like to try to explain stuff in more simple terms, because some of the terms that they use are really big-minded, and it's like, but it's not difficult. Why are you making it difficult? So I try to simplify it. Other than that, I'll end this before I babble even longer. Thank you guys for stopping by. Thank you for checking out my channel, and I will talk to you in a future video.